All righty, we will go ahead and get started. As I was just kind of starting to say, this is stuff that I can talk pretty much like an entire day about because it is nuanced in the fact that it can be very broad depending on the human, whatever. And it's something I'm very passionate about because we are sold so much nonsense in the mainstream media about like these crazy diet programs and stuff that you have to follow. And I am just not always about that stuff. And I definitely do things a different way. Flexible dieting, whole nother subject, won't get into that tonight, but please, as we're going through this, just unmute yourself, ask questions, raise your hand, put in the chat. I won't promise you I will see everything that's in the chat because once I share my screen, it kind of like cuts down on what I can see. So please, best thing is probably to unmute yourself, but I do want this to be conversational. If you have any questions or whatever, don't hesitate to stop me and just reach out because I want to make this as clear as possible for everybody. So with that being said, let me get this part going. And I just really know enough to be dangerous on this stuff with Zoom. Okay, can everybody see my screen that shows the slides? Is that showing?
Not on mine.
Not on yours.
Nope, me neither.
All right, try this. Oh, it would probably help if I hit the share button. What about now?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, we'll go with this. Okay. So again, this is just a brief presentation on how to lose weight without tracking calories. Good eating habits is a set of skills that you develop. Of course, all skills take practice. You don't start a new skill and expect to be very good at them at the beginning. So you have to keep that in mind that if you're going to go this route, you have to expect to fail at the beginning, and that is totally fine. And then you learn and you progress as you go. So I like to, liken this back to horses. It's similar when you first started riding. Do you remember how awkward and uncomfortable you felt the first time you started riding, let alone trying to post on the right diagonal, and all that seemed really hard? Nowadays, it's all pretty intuitive. You just get on, you do it, you post when they try, it's all similar. And a lot of this can be the same way. So many people think that there is this like secret sauce that they just don't have yet when it comes to achieving weight loss, and that it's some magic potion, some magic program, some magic pill. And it's not. It's really not that complicated. It's very cut and dry, but just because it's not complicated and it's simple doesn't mean that it is easy. I mean, we've all heard that a lot with different things. So kind of harking back to weight loss 101. To lose weight, beyond anything else, like you must be eating in a calorie deficit, beyond your hormones or magic foods or intermittent fasting or any of that. None of that matters if you're not in a calorie deficit. So if your eating window, if you're an intermittent faster and your eating window is only 4 hours, but yet you eat enough of that food in that window, you're not going to lose weight. You cannot outsmart the law of thermodynamics. It's physics, it's biology. That's just how our bodies are built. That's how the world works, how the universe works and whatnot. So you must be eating in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. And that means you are actually consuming less calories than what you burn through a day. So it is not carbs, it's not dairy, it's not sugar, it's not chocolate, it's not clean foods or dirty foods or any of that. It literally is, you have to consume less calories than what you intake through the day. So when it comes to tracking, I personally, as a coach, I like my clients to track for about 2 weeks in the beginning for most people in most situations, just to get some awareness around food. But that doesn't mean tracking works for everybody. I find most people have I say self-awareness. They just don't know really what's in the calories that are in the food that they're eating. And this is not your fault. Actually, they did a study of dietitians, and even dietitians who have, master's degree in nutrition and whatever, they severely underestimated their own intake and then overestimated their calorie expenditure on the other side. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's just like our human nature. We kind of tend to forget about the like bites, licks, taste, sips of things that all have calories and whatnot. Um, you know, so trekking works well for people that are, um, short term. Like I said, all my clients, if they don't have any disordered eating history, we'll track for at least 2 weeks or so. So I kind of get an idea of where they're coming from and that type of thing. You can learn like what an actual serving of protein looks like. You can learn what a reasonable serving of carbs or pasta or rice or peanut butter or any of that type of stuff looks like. It's great for those things. It's great for people that have what I call advanced needs. These are people that have a specific goal by a specific date. So if you have a wedding, pictures scheduled for something, maybe a big horse show, there could be any kind of, emphasis on one specific date that you want to. So tracking would be most efficient for them. Doesn't mean it can't be done the other way, just most efficient. Of course, there's people that just like to track because they want to know the data if they're numbers oriented folks. And again, people that want the greatest level of efficiency in the process. Tracking is the most efficient way to go about the weight loss process, but it doesn't mean it has to be the only way. If you want to do like go from point A to point B the fastest, that's probably your best bet. But it doesn't work for everybody. And even myself, part of the time I do, like right now, I just started a diet. I have a date this fall for a photo shoot. I have a date I got to get to. So I am tracking. I'm working with another coach. I have accountability. I have all of that. When I'm just like trying to lose like 5 pounds myself, like I don't track. I just kind of know I do these habits that I'm getting ready to talk to you guys about, and I can do that. But it's, there's no end date to that. So again, if tracking makes you anxious, confused, distracted, distressed, if you have a disordered eating history, any of that, if you find you are creating an imbalanced life with it, it's not made for everybody, and that's all independent of everybody else. And also the big rocks. If you don't have the big rocks in place, then trekking is not something you need to worry about. And those big rocks we will definitely get into here in just a minute. So I already kind of touched on this, so I guess I jumped the gun here, but research shows that folks underestimate their food intake by as much as 30 to 50%. They don't realize how many calories are actually in the foods that they're eating. And they tend to misjudge portions. And it's not just regular people like us. Like I said, it's dietitians too. It's just human nature. We kind of tend to think that we are eating less than we are, and we're burning more than we're not. That's just human nature. It's not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not the idiot or whatever in the group. That's just how humans kind of work. And that's been proven over and over again in research. So my little example here is the actual serving size of peanut butter is 32 grams, 2 tablespoons, but this is 2 tablespoons weighed. It's 32 grams. And if you've ever weighed peanut butter, I guarantee you when you measure out 2 tablespoons by volume, it's going to be way more than 32 grams. So you may inadvertently think you're measuring out 2 tablespoons, and you might have closer to 56 grams, which, as you can see, has significantly more calories to it. So, this just harkens back to why tracking or some awareness is good for people. But that's not what this presentation is about tonight. So what I like to say is saying yes to one thing always means saying no to something else. So if you are unwilling to track your food, then you have to be more patient and be willing to develop another level of self-awareness, mindfulness, really tune into your hunger, satiety, fullness cues, your emotions, what drives your hunger, and that type of thing. And that does not happen overnight. It will not happen overnight for most people. So I'm going to say that to you right now. So saying no to the accuracy of tracking, then you have to be willing to work with yourself and get better over time. Again, it goes back to skill practice. You have to practice these skills. They have to get better. They absolutely work, but you have to be patient, give yourself grace to get better at these skills. most people have very little idea what true hunger feels like. In our society, we live in a first world country. We can get, uh, we may have some low blood sugar issues from time to time if you go for a long time without eating, but we rarely experience like actual true hunger, like to the point where your body is in that moment starved for food. It's just not something that we have to experience. So most people, when they start to feel that kind of sensation, if it's been a few hours or a little bit longer than I think, it's anxiety producing, it's panic inducing, um, that type of thing. So mindful eating means paying attention to the experience, feelings, and sensations you have around eating. And practices like eating slowly, eating until 80% full are part of mindful eating. And it teaches you how to regulate your food intake by noticing how your body and mind feel when you eat. So this is all the stuff that, you have to kind of become like a Jedi about when it comes to yourself. So again, just to kind of emphasize what mindful eating is, by practicing mindful and intuitive eating, you can improve your ability to self-regulate. Over time, you remove the training wheels, which is like the calorie counting, the tracking, hand portions, which is something I'll touch on here in a little bit. You enjoy more flexibility and freedom. And if you master these self-regulatory skills, it has also been shown to increase and strengthen your self-efficacy, which is the belief that you yourself you have the confidence, motivation, and the self-assuredness to accomplish your goals going forward. And that I cannot even begin to express how important that is in a good program that sets you up for success. You need to feel like it's something that is attainable, that you have a clear plan, and that you can accomplish it for yourself. And the good thing about these non-tracking behaviors is that they can be applied anytime, anywhere, no matter what food available, options are available. So for us that are at horse shows, we're thrown into different social situations. We have to go to, not dinners out and that type of thing. But you can always eat slowly and mindfully. You can always tune into your hunger signals and figure out if you're really hungry, if you're satiated, if you're full, any of those things. So these work for you anytime, anywhere, which is also why I say that even people that are willing to track their food on a weight loss progress, these type of things will serve you in the same process and allow you to have better maintenance of your weight loss, because these are all behaviors we need to learn to maintain our weight loss. So hunger is not an emergency. Kind of talked about this a little bit ago. We're conditioned to think that anytime we feel really hungry, that it's like the world is ending and everything's coming apart. And if your stomach's growling, then something needs to happen. And that's part of our culture. You have to start learning to sit with your hunger for a little bit of time. So this is one thing we'll get into in a little bit, but one thing of losing weight without tracking calories is like you need to recognize your hunger and then try and stretch it out for a little bit longer. Not stretch it out so far that you get hangry, low blood sugar, you're ready to eat your arm off, but stretch it out a little bit more than the first hunger pain strikes you. And then you're like, oh, I got to eat now because I'm hungry. You can do that, but you're going to maintain your weight there because that's what your body is telling you. It's like, oh, we need to eat. So if you eat at the first sign of your hunger, you're probably just going to end up in weight maintenance. So it's learning to sit with hunger a little bit. Nobody ever died from like their first hunger pain. I don't want to say nobody ever died from hunger because that's not true. But in our country, not usually an option. Or not usually an issue. So this mindful eating thing, it works well for anyone whose main goal is to improve their relationship with food. It's good for people that don't have specific weight or body composition related goals, at least in a specific time frame. It allows people to use other food monitoring methods, which I will get into shortly, or transition away from tracking. If you are somebody that has always tracked, even my clients that I do have tracked during a weight loss process, part of my program is then undoing that so that they know how to go live in a real world and exist without living by an app. Nobody wants to always have to track their food. They don't want to feel like they're always either all on a diet and an app and that accountability or all not. So either way, you've got to have some mindfulness about it and intuitive eating. And it really just goes back to having fundamental skills that you can use anywhere, anytime, and forever. So when mindful or intuitive eating are combined with a method such as hand portions, which I'll touch on, calories, macros, the normal tracking or whatever, it just provides more data and more awareness and allows you to make better choices. And you learn to better self-regulate your intake by paying attention to how food actually makes you feel. So much to come. And I don't want to take you guys up your entire evening. So I'm trying to rush through this, but please stop me if you have any questions. So success is determined by what you can do consistently, repeatedly, and sustainably. So what we do consistently determines more of the outcome than what we do perfectly a couple times a month or whenever your perfect, days may exist. So whatever you do 80% or more of the time you're probably going to be a product of that rather than what you do perfectly 10% of the time or what you do terribly 10% of the time. So if you can practice the fundamentals very consistently, that's necessary to move the needle forward. And it doesn't make any sense to add any more complexity to the program or your weight loss program if that's working for you. So these are kind of the big rocks that I have briefly mentioned in another slide. So until you can have all of these in good order, you don't necessarily even, as harsh as the sound, like have any business trying to track calories, trying to count macros, trying to do any kind of advanced level program, because until you have all these things in order, you're going to struggle with different things. So make sure all these are established and consistent. This serves you in both weight loss and weight maintenance. And you want to focus on one of these practices at a time, get really good at it for 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then once that is solidified, try adding another. These are the stuff that if any of you have seen my social media posts, so like this is not the sexy stuff. This is not something that you're going to drop 30 pounds in 30 days, probably for most people. But all of this absolutely affects fat loss, weight loss, all of that. So until you can do these things well, your sleep needs to be managed, protein at every meal, strength train a few days a week. I could do an entire training session on why it's important to do strength training. Stay generally active. This is just like daily steps, just moving around, be patient. Don't expect overnight success. Proper hydration. Water doesn't mean you can't drink pop, tea, coffee, any of that stuff. And a lot of that actually contributes to your water intake a day. And I have people that were like, oh, I drink so much Diet Coke. I have it. And I'm like, I don't care about how much Diet Coke anybody drinks or Diet Pop or calorie-free drinks or whatever, as long as you're also getting enough water on. Nobody is getting fat because of Diet Coke. I don't care what the zealots on internet want to tell you. Eat variety of fruits, veggies, whole foods, manage your stress, cortisol usually affects your sleep. All of that makes it really hard to fight the body on losing weight. Appropriate sun exposure. By this, I just mean make sure your circadian rhythms are in a good shape. And I know that's kind of like woo sounding, but circadian rhythms help with your sleep quality. They help with vitamin D, your mood and that type of thing. And then also no guilt trips. You aren't serving anybody by overeating and then feeling extreme guilt about it and doing it for like another week and then saying you're going to get started again. So your best bet if you overeat is to be completely non-emotional about it and then just get back on the wagon as soon as possible. All right, so we're going to get into the skills finally. And I will try and breeze through these as fast as I can. Again, please stop me if I'm going too fast. I don't want to take up your whole evening. So first skill is to always have a plan, prioritize, prepare, make time. So this would be like if you need to schedule appointments in your calendar for your workout, meal prep, grocery shopping, anything, that look ahead at your upcoming week. I always talk to my clients about setting intention, set intention with date nights out, set intention with horse shows, set intention with the week ahead. What do you want it to look like? And then anticipate your roadblocks and your hurdles that may come up in that, and then orchestrate a plan from there. And it may not be that that plan works out perfectly when it, really unfolds in life, but having a plan avoids winging it, and winging it almost always screws people over. But if you have a plan, you set your intention, then you usually can kind of have an idea of what you're going to do. So adopt a daily or weekly ritual when you're home in your normal routine, and set aside a little time to prepare for the future. Could be 5 minutes every morning, 30 minutes every few days. Sundays you use for meal prep. So small meal prep tasks like packing a lunch, chopping veggies to have on handy. Larger meal prep tasks, this is what I tend to do, is like batch cooking my proteins over the weekend. So when I know I'm going to be gone for home and I got to take lunches with me and I don't want to rely on fast food on a regular basis for lunch, I will batch cook my proteins on Sunday. I don't portion them out in meals with everything perfectly on Sunday. I just have my protein ready to go. So then the night before I can take the protein, put it in a container and put something else with it. And then in the morning, it's just grab and go. Because if I don't plan ahead, then I'm just going to go to whatever restaurant is closest, handiest, whatever. And that's not always going to be the best option. So for working out, this may be like getting your gym bag ready, your workout clothes set out the night before. It may be something like arranging childcare if you have to go to the gym, that type of thing. 5-minute actions, super important. It doesn't have to be something major. And this is one thing I always talk a lot about, is people think like the goal, the step from where they're at to like where they want to get to is so giant, but they forget about all the little steps in between. You don't need to worry about what's out here. You just need to worry about like what's here and what can you do to move the needle the next step. So I just had this conversation today. So look at it as casting a vote towards a person or the identity that you want to become. So taking action creates results. Results build motivation and momentum. Motivation usually doesn't come first, or at least it doesn't hang on for very long. At first, you may feel motivated very slightly in the beginning, but motivation is gone. So you need to, you can't rely on motivation. I'm telling you that right now. So then what small actions can you, and set your intention for the day that casts a vote for you to be the person you want to be. So book a physical therapy appointment that you may need, take a multivitamin that you haven't, put a priority on your health, go to bed 5 minutes earlier. Maybe you start flossing your teeth, meditate for 5 minutes, take a 5-minute walk, foam roll, stretch for 5 minutes, all these. Like, what can you do in a 5-minute habit in the beginning, and then establish your consistency with that. So avoid the trap of thinking you have to go from like point A to point B, which is giant out here. This is your end result that you want to get to. Move it down to 5 minutes, and we're going to crush that. All right. Very key. So when it comes to losing weight without using any kind of tracking, calorie counting, or whatever, is you have to start paying attention to your eating behaviors. And this is probably the most important part of it, I'd say. You don't want to rush your food, and nobody thinks they're rushing their food. Everybody thinks they eat slow until you actually start paying attention to it. So you need to eat slower to give your body the ability to catch up, for your stomach to catch up to your brain, so that your brain can register you as full. Otherwise, your brain is usually like 20 or 30 minutes behind where your stomach is at. So your stomach may be like tapping out, I'm done. Your brain feels fine. So you don't actually tap out or done. You keep eating, and then 20 or 30 minutes later, after you finish, you're just like, man, I don't feel good. I ate too much. I'm too full. I mean, how often does that happen? We've all done that, right? So things you can do here, slow yourself down. Use a meal timer and actually record how long it takes you to eat a meal. I know it sounds kind of cheesy or whatever, but it's a great exercise to start tracking that, and it just builds your awareness over your meals, because I guarantee you're gonna like try to drag it out. And the other things you can do is to do something in between bites, like setting your fork down, taking a deep breath, take a sip of water, engage in conversation for a minute. All things to just like slow the process down. You can wine taste your food. And by wine tasting your food, it's kind of like think about the texture and the flavors and what's going on in your mouth. And have you ever even stopped and thought about that? That's an option. Eating with no distractions, which is really, really difficult. Most of us always have cell phones with us, or there's TVs, or we're listening to a Zoom meeting and snarfing down food, type of thing. So eat with no distractions, be very present in your meal that's in front of you. And again, you want to start small. So don't do this at like the entire day. You're just like, hey, I'm going to be more mindful about my day. That's going to be really tough for you in the beginning. I guarantee it. So start with maybe one meal per day and master that. Go to another meal, then go to another meal. And that will serve you better than just making this conscious decision right now. It's like, hey, I'm going to just slow down my eating. That doesn't help anybody by just saying that. So you need to start recognizing your physiological hunger and fullness cues. We kind of lose this. So as children, we're really, really good about knowing when we're hungry or full. Obviously, kids know when they're hungry, they usually let you know. And when they're done eating, no matter what it is or how much we insist upon them eating, they're just like, nope, done, don't want any more. Kids are really good at that. Adults get bad at it because we have so many outside and cultural influences. And then we start getting really busy in our brains. We don't pay attention to what's in front of us. We just eat and eat. And then it goes back to that, like 30 minutes later, you have overeaten and you're too full. So regulate your eating behaviors by starting to pay attention to your hunger and fullness cues. And this also is something that can be an issue with people that have tracked their macros or calories for a long time. This is the other side of that, but they can lose their ability to sense when they're hungry or full, really, because there's so much like numbers by the book. And there's ways to navigate that, but that's a different conversation. So if you are trying to eat less, you need to maybe get up from the table, walk around, give yourself a break to kind of like really check in and know where you're at with it. And this is a game changer. I like for a lot of people, no matter where you are, what you're doing, if you're at a restaurant, if you're at a social event, if you're at a dinner, if you're someplace that you don't have any control over any of the food or anything that's served, you can always eat to 80% full. And what is 80% full? So first, you want to start eating slowly, check in throughout your meal. When you feel like you're 80% full, stop eating, sit there, collect feedback, and then you will get better over time. Your ability to calibrate your 80% fullness will get better and more accurate over time. So appetite awareness, though, depends on you being able to identify your physical cues. This method may not work in situations where appetite cues are disrupted, such as if you have like extreme jet lag, a high stress situation, horse shows is a huge one. When your sleep schedule gets way out of whack, this one would be tough to always tune in and rely on it to be perfect. But otherwise, anywhere you go, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're eating, if it's the most insane fettuccine Alfredo that you're eating in Italy, type of thing, that's going to be like the highest calorie dense meal that you've ever had in your entire life, maybe great. And I would hope somebody's probably not dieting or not trying to diet during that type of trip. But if you are, 80% fullness always works out. You always feel better. You won't feel bloated. You'll be happier about your decisions going forward. Again, it's just another option of casting in a vote for that person you want to become. So our bodies kind of work on a circadian rhythm, If you have like a general normal eating schedule, you will start to experience your hunger and fullness cues that adapt with you as you go throughout your day. So if you have normal eating times, you will notice that your body kind of gets hungrier at those times, kind of doesn't get as hungry the rest of the time. That's well and good for people that have great routines. If you are unintentionally missing meals because you're too busy or purposely skipping meals because you think that is going to help you with weight loss, that usually leads to an overcompensation, on the back end of it. So you overeat because you're so hungry, and you also think that you haven't eaten anything. So you're just going to go ham on stuff for the time being. And what happens though is that you can easily end up overeating calories, than what you didn't eat throughout the day. Another quick skill is just to match your energy needs to your desired goals. So are you trying to build muscle? Are you trying to diet? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to maintain? Just goes back to whatever you do consistently. And when you're not tracking, it is important when you're tracking to have the most consistency, but when you're not tracking, you're not having direct numbers to make adjustments and decisions on. So your behaviors need to be pretty consistent so that you can make informed decisions. I always say you can't make informed decisions without having all the information. So the better the information you have and the more consistent you are, the better the information is for you to make and decisions going forward. All right, so a couple of portion control methods that don't involve using an app or calorie tracker is using your palm. And this is good because your hands are always with you everywhere, right? I think for most people. It is also scaled to the individual. So my palm size for a protein may be different than a smaller petite female palm size of protein, which would be different from a male who is twice my weight. So they scale to everybody. So this is a really good option for people that can, if you just need some way of starting to have some portion control, like what do I even eat? Where do I even start? So you can use your hands. Palms determines protein, fist determines non-starchy veggies, cupped hand usually determines carb portions, and a thumb determines fat portions. Couple of notes. The hand system does assumes like a mixed intake, in that not every food you eat is going to be only protein, only carbs, only, whatever. Of course, again, that increases your validity of the information you're putting in, but that's not also real life. So it also assumes that you'll eat different protein sources like chicken, eggs, cottage cheese, that have different fat contents and whatnot. So most foods aren't purely one macronutrient, and that's okay. The hand system, it kind of accounts for that. So hand systems are also for plating your food. So if you're worried about raw or cooked or whatever, it's just whatever you're putting. So if it's raw, you measure raw. If it's cooked, you measure cooked. But you can start here with this little kind of rule of thumb, which is 1 to 2 palms of protein, 1 to 2 fists of starchy veggies, 1 to 2 handfuls of carb dense foods, 1 to 2 thumbs of fat dense foods. So you want to be consistent with that. We collect some biofeedback data, and then you can make adjustments for there. But that's a system of not tracking by the numbers, but you're tracking in some way that's easy for you, and then you can adjust as needed. So you can either add more meals or add a bigger portion size, or vice versa. Eat fewer meals, cut out one portion size type thing. Another one is the plate method. This is also a good portion control method that you can start. None of these portion control methods are the end all be all. There's no magic in them, except for it gives you a starting point to track your biofeedback and data on to make adjustments going forward without you having to track. So that's why I'm presenting these. Is you do a half plate of non-starchy veggies. Honestly, I would hardly ever tell anybody that you can't go wrong with non-starchy veggies. If you're hungry, they provide a lot of volume. If you season them right, they can be quite tasty. you don't have to eat them just steamed and plain and sad and boring by any means, but half a plate of protein, half a plate of starchy veggies for fats, where you can include your thumb full of fat. So 3 plates, 2 snacks. You have 3 plates like this that's presented, 2 snacks. And then here's snack guidelines that I kind of give is each snack fits in the palm of one hand. And then if anything goes, but if you're finding you're not making progress, then we either need to look at breaking down the portion sizes you're using, the number of meals, or start making your snacks very protein centric. So protein has a high thermic effect of digestion. So it takes a lot more calories to digest and it's harder to store as fat. So that's an easier one. But you want to make adjustments based on hunger, fullness, your overall activity level, and most of all, your results. What are your desired results? What are you trying to do? And all of this kind of like accumulates and being able to match your required energy intake with some of these methods and skills that I presented that provide for appetite awareness. So it doesn't have to be an either or. And remember that the scale is not the only measure of progress. These are all things presented here that, can show progress without relying on the scale. Scale weight is something I'm constantly coaching my clients on, that it is something we track as long as you don't have an issue with it, but it's not the end all be all. And often it's the last thing we'll see to catch up to the progress. So I know it can be challenging to eat less at first. So you might start with a basic meal template that you can build with portions. Then notice how you feel after eating a meal that's built out of those specific portions. Track your hunger beforehand, how you immediately felt after, how you felt about 30 minutes after that. For a couple of days, try a meal template that will be less than what you would normally choose. Then ask yourself, how's that working for you? If you are like starving and hunger cravings are out of control, then maybe you need to eat a little bit more. If you are like, no, I feel good, depending on how your progress measures may be going, then you might be in a sweet spot, or you may need to drop it down a little bit. Choose higher quality foods more often. This is very situational to each person. It's like, what is your normal? How do you make that one step better? I'm always saying with my people is, how do you, instead of trying to go from eating all chips, cookies, processed foods, gas station foods, whatever, to being like crazy organic and grown in a garden in your backyard or whatever. It's like, no, don't worry about that. That's too far and not necessary for that matter. So just what's one step better? Everything exists on a spectrum. So what's the best, worst, and pretty good choices at a gas station? If you only have 5 minutes to prepare a meal, if you don't have refrigeration, if you want something sweet. So if you want something sweet, what is the worst option, a better option, and a pretty good option? So move yourself one needle on those. And again, these are all go back to, you are casting votes for the person that you want to become. So if you do these repeated over time, it goes back to the consistency thing. That's how you establish these behaviors, the habits, the patterns that consistently done over time will lead you to results. Processed foods aren't evil. I don't have any problem with them. I don't like anybody to say that they have to count anything out. I don't like people to be like, I'm never going to eat ice cream. I'm never going to have a drink of alcohol. I'm never going to do insert whatever. Never going to eat carbs. That's not good. Nothing is evil. It's always the doses and the poison. So if you have a diet entirely on processed foods, you're not helping yourself in terms of weight loss goals. Those foods can be inflammatory. They need to be a smaller part of your diet, but they're absolutely okay. So instead of just saying you're going to remove all those things, I always suggest, like, what can you add? What can we, instead of taking away stuff in the beginning, what can you add? So can we add more veggies and fruits? Could we add more lean protein? And a lot of times you will find you are more satiated on those type of things without having to feel like you're taking stuff away. It's like if you add stuff, make a point to eat that stuff first, then it kind of will start crowding out the other stuff in a lot of circumstances. Without going into the whole diatribe about processed versus whole foods. So again, whole foods provide more food volume. So therefore you actually can have like the physical sensation of fullness for a less amount of calories than you can with processed foods. That comes in handy a lot of times when you're dieting. They have good micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, that type of thing. Helps you with your natural regulation of satiety. I will tell you, most food companies have spent a lot of money with food scientists to figure out what the optimal taste, texture, sensation of is the food for you to want to eat more of it, because then they sell more of it. It's not evil. They're just in business to do that. So you have to keep that in mind. So if you stay away from those things a little bit more, you're setting yourself up for more success, because you're not having to like resist those urges, because all those foods are generally designed to override our hunger or our fullness cues. So the trifecta is salt, sugar, fat. Any combination of those things are the things that are going to like trigger your brain to be like, we need to eat all of this, even if you're not even hungry. If you're not hungry and you eat some of that stuff, then more often than not, you're going to be like, I want more of it. So that's something to keep in mind. Keep it easy. It doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to be like growing your vegetables and stuff in your backyard. Have pre-washed veggies, salads, greens. I say canned things, frozen things, whatever makes sense. If it's in your refrigerator and it's handy, you're probably going to like gravitate to that. But if it's going to be this big barrier for you to make that meal or make the healthy option, then it's probably not going to happen. So find a core roster of your go-to meals. And I like to say this is like 3 to 5 simple meals with whole or less processed foods that you're willing to make, and have that kind of as like your go-to, your backup. Have something in your fridge that's always reachable and handy for that. So start with a core roster of meals and then build out from there. Experiment, upgrade, explore. You may try things that you never thought you would like and you really like it. You may try something and you're like, that's terrible. That's fine. You just keep going and find your go-to things. Provide adequate nutrients. We kind of talked on this a lot. Kind of what like a whole foods healthy diet would look like. Cannot stress the beneficial effects of lean protein, colorful veggies, higher fiber carbs. Just fiber in general is a great idea. Healthy fats in the right serving is important for inflammation, hormones, lipid profiles, all of that. Always need to try and be getting half your body weight in ounces of water per day. That's a good amount of water to shoot for. And you can include coffee and tea and all of those. And you should not be relying on supplements. So if anybody's trying to sell you magic supplements to do anything, not necessary. Multivitamins are generally good for people because we do have some deficiencies, not much. Protein powders can be convenient to get more protein in. I generally like people taking a good quality omega-3 fatty acid. Omega-3s have a lot of health benefits. You could do greens powders if you hate veggies, because those will have some of your micronutrients, or a fiber supplement if you are somebody that really doesn't like a lot of non-starchy veggies either. And that's good for cholesterol and whatever, but there's no magic supplement, and I don't align myself with any supplement company. I don't try to sell anybody anything. I just provide information. So that's where I go there. Yes, ma'am.
On the proteins, shakes and stuff, do they have a tendency to make you gain weight? Because that's kind of how I felt like it's happened.
No, protein by itself will not make you gain weight. Now, there are some protein shakes that can be more of a meal replacement, or some of them can even be made for what I like to say is like, I hate to use the term, but like bodybuilders that are trying to gain weight. So those
that's what I think of. Yeah, that's what I think of is like bodybuilders and stuff when it comes to protein type shakes and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, there's a spectrum there of shakes. So
sure.
Whey concentrate is kind of like your base level protein shake, and that will have a little bit of fat and carbs in it. But they will on average be, anywhere from like 100 to 150 calories per serving. There is whey isolate, which will be less carbs and fat, more strict, like more actual just concentrated protein, if that's really what you're trying to get. Sometimes they don't taste quite as, creamy or good as the other. And those will be higher in protein, but still usually in that 100 to 150 range. They just offer you like 4, 5, 6 grams more of protein. But I think probably what you're seeing is like the weight gainer or mass gainer shakes.
Probably.
And that would be something that is way different. So it would have added carbs and fat, or,
Mhm.
there's a lot of carb additions that bodybuilder type things will use.
Sure.
So protein shakes by themselves, if it's just a protein, then no, they shouldn't,
Okay.
propagate weight gain.
And would that be I'm a very picky eater. I have expanded some since I've gotten older, but would this a lean protein be a ideal approach or option?
I think it depends on where your daily intake of protein is. I always like to say food first, because if you're
Sure.
like me, I just like eating food more than I like drinking it. So I try to get my food
Yeah.
in, or my protein in through food sources. There's a couple of days when my schedule just doesn't work out and I need a more convenient option. And I certainly do incorporate a
Okay.
protein shake, because I do have a certain amount of protein that I want to get in per day. So it's kind of like, where does your schedule fit? What's your normal protein intake look like? What works for you?
Yeah, it's probably not the greatest.
Most of the time it's not. For people, we can always increase. And that is one of the easiest tools to just further your body composition. And actually, we all need more protein as we age instead of less. Some of us, we
Mhm.
tend to think that like, oh, I'm not young and I'm not active and I'm not doing anything, so I need less protein. But we actually get worse at digesting protein as we get older.
Oh,
So we tend to need more rather than less.
okay. Thanks.
Of course. Alrighty. All right. Gonna rush through this. So of course we always hear that like you need to move more and stuff for weight loss. You don't need to do crazy workouts. You don't need to be out of breath. You don't have to like be dripping in sweat. Not necessary. I love putting people on resistance training if you want to affect your body composition and increase your lean mass, fuel your metabolism, all that. Resistance training is the way to go. But if you can't do any of that, number one, always, no matter what, best thing is just to move more as far as getting out and walking. I don't care if it's parking further at the grocery store, if it's taking an extra lap around Sam's or Costco, taking the stairs someplace in your work building, wherever it is, just more steps, move more. And it also has a big way of influencing where the nutrients we're taking in goes. So the more active you are, the better your body is at distributing blood sugar, about, storing fat, storing carbs as fat. The body actually doesn't like to store carbs as fat as much as we are led to believe. But if you're intaking a excessive amount of carbs, doing no activity, you don't have anywhere for that energy burn to go, then, you will eventually convert those carbs to fat. So 5-minute exercise habits, like I mentioned, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, pack your workout clothes the night before, because you're more apt to go to the gym if you have it all ready for you and you set your intention, or, it's the first thing in the morning. But you can also playing with kids, hiking, surfing, walking, explore a new city, any kind of recreational sports. Give yourself a challenge, like try to decide you're going to do a handstand or learn to swim. I can't imagine myself doing a handstand at this point in my life, but on the challenge, I am not a runner. I've been a terrible runner my entire life. I have decided this summer that this fall I'm going to do a 5K, and I suck at running. I'm not going to do it for time. I just want to complete it and not walk. That's my goal. Is like, I'm just going to run the whole thing and not walk. That's the goal. So I have set that challenge for me because it's something different for me to do. I am religious about going to the gym 4 days per week to get my weight training in generally. And I just wanted a challenge for something different. So I have started doing a little bit of work for that. Again, rest and recover. You cannot exclude the ability to manage stress, to sleep well. If you don't have stress management and your sleep is out of control, you are fighting a losing battle with losing weight. So until you can get those things in control, I beg you to not try to put yourself in a deficit or a calorie deficit, because you're going to be fighting, again, you're fighting a losing battle. So if you are wanting to start a weight loss, you can't just pile more stress on top of a lot of stress. Weight loss on the body is a stressor. We don't like to think that, but it is. It's your body doesn't know if you are in a famine and never going to eat again, or that you're doing this because you want to lose an inch around your waist. It doesn't know the difference. So it's a stressor, no matter how you want to slice or dice it. There's different ways you can mitigate some of that stress as far as your methodologies with your dieting, whatnot. But always make sure your sleep and stress management, some level of stress management. We can't get away from stress in this day and age. It's everywhere. It's, around, but have a nighttime routine, a sleep ritual kind of thing, with a wind down routine so that you can ensure good stress. So before you start a diet, I implore you to make sure you are sleeping well and that you don't feel like you are overstressed. Again, last, I think we're getting to the end of these. It's just like control your environment. They say if the food is in your house or possession, you will eventually eat it. It's just like if it's there and it's convenient, you'll eat it. If you have to drive to the store to get it to eat it, you may not be so inclined. So control what's in your environment if possible. On the flip side, if a healthy food is in your house or possession, you will probably eat it over driving to the store to get an unhealthy food. So control that. Your willpower is a finite resource. You cannot rely on it. So you have to decide what your pitfalls are going to be and try and set yourself up for success. And you can largely do that by managing your environment. Again, with families, it's tougher to do, but you can still add more barriers for you to get some of these good foods than if they're just sitting out on the counter. Like your M&M bowl on the counter or something is probably not going to serve you because it's so easy and so available. So set yourself up for success. This kind of goes into the emotional eating side of food, which is a large topic in its own, but I like for people to, when they feel like they just want to grab something when they're not even sure they're hungry, but because they're stressed or sad or whatever, ask yourself this. It's called HALT. So are you hungry, anxious, lonely, tired? Is there some reason why you're being drawn to wanting to go eat? And if you could start taking minutes between your feelings and your anxiety and when you actually act upon the food, you can start taking back control of your thoughts. So it goes back to a lot of mindfulness, is like you just have to start creating space between the craving or the impetus for the activity of eating. Check in with yourself, see what the real reason is, kind of curiously think about it. Even if you go ahead and eat the food that time, at least you took that first step to find out what the reason was. And then the next time you may take that step, you may find out what the reason is, and then you may set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes. And if you still want the food in 5 minutes, which most of us probably are in 5 minutes, then you go eat it. But over time, you can build that skill up. This is kind of something I guess I already talked about, is just surfing the urge. It's like feeling it, noticing it, not acting like it's an emergency, not having to do anything about it. It's just starting to create space in your brain, and that will become very, very powerful, and you will take back control over your feelings the more space you can create in your brain. Alternatively, even better is you can try and find a different avenue for stress relief. So basic relaxation techniques, some type of movement you enjoy, go for a walk, hot shower or bath, massage, crafts project, woodworking, journaling, listening to music, calling a friend, calling parents, a daughter, son, whatever. If you just notice these things and take action, even if you don't feel like they're doing enough for you in the beginning, that is progress. And like, don't ever forget that these little itty bitty steps, again, just casting votes. You just need to cast votes, more and more votes for the person that you want to become. All right, we're wrapping this up now. So big picture is to not do all of these things all at once by any means. You need to focus on one practice, like find your low hanging fruit. What's the easiest thing for you to fix? And then do that. And you want to make sure that whatever you decide to improve that by, that it's easy enough. So if you're going to decide to get a high enough quality protein, or eat lots of produce, or eat slowly until satisfied, don't try and do all those things at once. Like pick one, get really good at that. It may take 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, make it seem easy enough. If you're eating 1 serving of fruits and vegetables a day now, getting 5 servings every single day may seem too hard, but you could shoot for either 3 servings a day or doing 5 servings like 3 or 4 days a week. The idea is you want to practice that's likely to result in success. I say if you are not 9 out of 10 confident that you can accomplish that, then you need to scale practice back until it's something that you are 9 out of 10 confident that you can accomplish that go and work. So if you stack easy on top of easy, you will wake up one day and realize that you've made a serious change and that it was easier than you expected. It was less invasive than what you expected. It didn't involve this like whole overnight shift in your lifestyle and your habits. So you of course want to chase consistency, not perfection. Things will always come up. You're always gonna have a surprise deadline at work, an argument with a partner, emergency trip to the vet. God love horses, you know. You can see success with less than 100% consistency. You don't have to be 100% consistent to have results, but whatever you are most consistent with, as far as if you are 50% consistent, you're going to see more results than doing nothing. If you are 60%, you're going to see more than 50%. If you're 80%, you're going to see more than the 60%. It's just, you know, it's like, it's a spectrum. It's not all on or all off. It's just what works for that day, that situation, that week, and all your lifestyle things. I know a lot of people will push back on this and say that it's too basic to work. It's not fast enough. There's not some concrete plan. There are not these like specific snacks or fuelings or whatever, and it's low calorie and guaranteed weight loss. And that's right, it's not. And it's not going to be some transformational weight loss and an overnight process, but I guarantee you these things are things that will carry you forward for the rest of your life. That once you do this, you learn these things, you spend the time to learn these things, then you will easily be able to maintain your weight and or lose weight as you see fit. So I always like to say, yeah, it's not an immediate overnight transformation, but really, how have those things been working for us in the past? I mean, most of us have all done them. They work short term, we gain the weight back, and then they don't work. So this is different for everybody. You know, start where you're at and move that one step better. You know, track, as far as tracking, I mean, like your biofeedback, which is hunger, fullness, sleep, stress levels, energy levels, that type of thing, and see where you're at. Then you find your sweet spot. So either adjust your intake up or down from there. And yeah, has their quality sleep, moving regularly, stress management, mindset, all of that, you know, comes into play. All big. Don't ignore any of it. You cannot ignore any of these things. You can only go so long with crappy sleep and crappy stress management and not moving. So that's kind of everything wrapped up in a nutshell. It's right at 1 hour, which is plenty long enough. I'm sorry for keeping you guys here, but like I said in the beginning, I can nerd out on this stuff forever. So I'm happy to answer any more questions that there may be right now. Let me make sure. Any questions in the Facebook group? And I have created kind of the follow-up guide. It's a PDF to this. It is posted in the Facebook group as well. And when I post this recording, I will make sure it's tagged with it as well. That kind of gives the, you know, the bold points of this stuff. So any questions? Happy to answer anything at all. All righty. Thanks, everybody. You guys have a great night. Stay cool out there. I don't know if anybody's going to NSBA. A lot of people are. Stay cool in Tulsa, and good luck to anybody that's showing there and everybody that's showing upcoming. And if there's anything I can help with, of course, please reach out, message me, or drop a question in the Facebook group. I'm always happy to answer questions there. And if there's anything you guys would specifically like to see a training on, happy to do that. Just let me know. So you guys take care. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Night.